The Affordable Care Act is now under assault because Trump and the Republican-controlled Senate are taking piecemeal approach to dismantling what the Obama administration and that Congress attempted to do with sort of reforming the healthcare in the United States of America, which is an international shame and disgrace and embarrassment. The United States healthcare or lack of healthcare system. So today we have Professor Gluck, Abby R. Gluck, who specializes in health policy at Yale Law School, and a student of Professor Gluck, Erica Turrett, at Yale Law School. They've written a piece here, The Ticking Time Bomb Under Obamacare. Again, I prefer not to call it that, but New York Times got to get you to clickbait, baby. The threat from President Trump and Republicans to take health care away, including a pending case that would strike down a large part of the law, has hit alarming levels, is the subtitle. So here we go. Yes, the Democrats reclaimed the House, but you should not assume that your health care coverage is now safe. The biggest threat is President Trump himself. His administration has been relentlessly assaulting the Affordable Care Act for 2 years, and that threat has not abated. Democrats may have made significant electoral gains by running on the protection of the pre-existing conditions guarantee to insurance, but Republicans apparently aren't listening. The president and his party remain focused on taking health care away. The administration has instituted administrative rules and guidance letters intended to undermine the insurance markets, trick the healthy into buying junk plans, and leave the less healthy with unaffordable premiums. It has also succeeded in reducing enrollment, making access to health care harder for the poor and immigrant populations, and for the first time in a decade, raising the number of uninsured children. To add insult to injury, it refuses to defend the ACA in a ludicrous lawsuit in Texas, in which it now appears the judge may very well strike down a large part of the law, including the ban on pre-existing conditions. The entire ACA is at stake. Don't be fooled by the president's claims that these problems are inherent in Obamacare. Let's start with the insurance markets. Combining healthy and sick people into a single insurance pool, as the ACA requires, drives down the cost of insurance. The administration is destroying this pool to isolate less healthy people in their own market with skyrocketing premiums, so the public and the insurance industry will turn against the law. First, it promulgated a rule that expands ACA-exempt short-term plans. Previously just Band-Aid plans for a 3-month period between jobs. Okay? To year-long exceptions that can be renewed for up to 3 years. It passed another rule allowing expansion of so-called association health plans. Once a limited exemption from some ACA requirements for some small businesses, but now open to virtually anyone. Many of these plans are so bare bones that they do not cover even prescription drugs or maternity care. Short-term plans can exclude people based on pre-existing conditions and exclude full categories of benefits, including substance abuse, even though the president claims to care about solving our national opioid crisis. To make matters worse, just last week, the administration relaxed the requirements for states to get waivers from ACA provisions, making it easier for states to make excuses for not covering their citizens. It is another potential avenue for keeping young, healthy people out of the insurance pools and driving up premiums for the Americans who remain. In addition, the administration cut the period for open enrollment in half. It also significantly reduced funding for navigators, given the task by the ACA of linking individuals to insurance, people helping, if you will. It seems these efforts to discourage enrollment are working. The enrollment period ends next week, and so far signups are down about 10%. Compared with last year. Add all this up, and premiums for baseline ACA plans in 2019, so-called silver plans, are 16% higher than they would have been absent the Trump administration's acts of sabotage. This is on top of the obstacles the administration has erected against needy populations. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services now allows states to require Medicaid recipients to work. In Arkansas, for example, more than 12,000 people have been pushed off the Medicaid rules since September of this year, when the requirements went into effect. It should be noted that most of these people have jobs. It's the onerous reporting procedures that are having their intended effect. What's worse, failure to comply carries with it a prohibition against reapplying for insurance for up to 6 months. Yes, no access to health care for 6 months. Immigrants are also in the administration's sights. A new rule would make getting certain federal benefits, including health coverage, grounds for classification as a public charge under the immigration law. Such a classification can prevent immigrants from obtaining permanent residency. The proposed rule will encourage immigrants to forego coverage for which they and their children are eligible. And then there is the meritless lawsuit in Texas. Mr. Trump's Justice Department has chosen not to defend the suit and to let the ACA benefits die, including the guarantee of insurance even if you have a pre-existing condition, despite President Trump and Republican candidates across the country swearing to defend them only weeks ago during the pitch of the election. The case involves the ACA's requirement that we all get insured or pay a tax, the so-called individual mandate. In 2012, the Supreme Court upheld the mandate as constitutional under Congress's taxing power. Texas and more than a dozen other states are now arguing not only that the mandate is unconstitutional, given that there is now a penalty of $0, but also, and here's the kicker, that the entire 2,000-page law should be overturned if the mandate must be excised. So they're attaching the entirety of the ACA to this point. The suit is such a perversion of settled legal doctrine that scholars they've made a typo in the New York Times. I remember when I was young. I read the Times every day when I was young. I used to do the crossword all the time, and I loved catching typos in the Times. I was like, oh my God, I actually caught the typo. You know, now, sloppy internet, blah, blah. We live in a world of just, the decay. I'll try that sentence again, switching these two words. The suit is such a perversion of settled legal doctrine that scholars who were on opposite sides of the last two ACA Supreme Court challenges have argued against it. The settled law is that when a court excises one part of a statute as unconstitutional, it aims to preserve the rest, and it defers to Congress's judgment. Here, there is no question about what Congress intended. It was the 2017 Congress that eliminated the mandate penalty, and the same 2017 Congress that left the rest of ACA standing. The judge overseeing the case was handpicked by Texas for his unfavorable view of the ACA, and has delayed until after the election what would be a disastrous decision with consequences for millions of Americans all over not just in Texas. Recent estimates say as many as 17 million could lose their health care in the first year alone. The ACA has been the most resilient statute in modern American history. It has survived 2 major Supreme Court challenges, more than 50 attempts to repeal it, state reluctance to obey it, and relentless administrative sabotage. But every day the assault continues, real people are hurt, and our healthcare system is put in jeopardy. When the Democrats take back the House in January, we can expect them to step in and defend the ACA in court, hold hearings to investigate the consequences of the administration's illegal rules, and use their oversight authority to make the Department of Health and Human Services account for its decisions. The House may well pass other bills to strengthen the ACA's protections, but with just one chamber, there is only so much it can do. Just because the election is over, we should not let Mr. Trump and his party escape accountability. That's Professor Abbe R. Gluck and Erica Turrett in the New York Times opinion section today, The Ticking Time Bomb Under Obamacare.